Can you begin just putting where you're from so our guests could see all the cool places you are, so you put like a business name and what area you're from. So Louis Tima from Samoa. Joey, do you have a business yet? You can see the business name is Luxury Paradise, Vortex Sensations, Fix of Thing. Thanks, Joey. Thanks for putting the what you're about. I like Akim Computer Technologies. I guess you're into computers. Donna from St. Augustine. Michelle, I guess in your aspiring entrepreneur. One in Ashton. Maria, Scissor Islands Film Central. All right, that's close by. Della of DHG Credibility. Hi, Kumar, I guess another aspiring entrepreneur. Michelle, Civil and Business Solutions. Aisha, Trini Stitchers, I guess you make clothes. Hi, Diane. Next Step Business Solutions Limited. Nice, nice. No one, somebody from Tobago is now about to ask someone from Tobago, Avian from Tobago, aspiring entrepreneur island Sips and sorry, so I'm pronouncing that correct. All right, lovely to see you guys. Lovely, lovely. All right, let's begin the intro. All right, so welcome to the Ehub. I'm going to assume some of you have been here before and some of you have not. So we'll do the quick introduction for those who have not been here. Right, you can find all our stuff on ehubtt.org. So for example, recordings to the past webinars or resources such as where can I find grants in Trinidad and Tobago, and just to see what we are about, all the information is right here. All right, so in 2020, we actually launched, right? This was an initiative between us and the US Embassy, and by us, some alumni who benefited from some programs from the embassy. And the embassy at the time said, wait, too much persons going to ISIS, and we need persons to have a better outlet, and entrepreneurship is an excellent outlet. So they look for folks who are willing to promote entrepreneurship. And that's the very genesis of the we had to come with a vision, and we said, you know what, we need to push collaboration, consensus building, and best business practices. Because you need things to be easier. It needs to be easier to do business here in Trinidad and Tobago for all entrepreneurial stakeholders. So an example of that is the Ehub, over 1,000 members strong, supported by the embassy, local, regional, foreign chambers of commerce, regional corporations, collaborate with the banks at TNT to make sure access to banking and finance is as least restrictive as possible. So, and much of this we already begun doing successfully. So we are over 1,000 members. We are like 1,981 members. We do get support from the embassy and the local and regional chambers, right? So for example, AmCham, this our guest today was lent to us by AmCham. So we are very grateful to them for that. And the banks are always happy to help us, believe it or not. Right? And as we gain momentum and consensus, we begin to push on the banks to see, guys, can this be done for us? So we are progressing. Cool. So the goals of Ehub is, in short, to be a chamber for micro entrepreneurs. We have noticed that many chambers focus, well, chambers are a good thing, and they focus on medium or small to medium and large entrepreneurs, and not necessarily on the pain points that micro entrepreneurs see. For example, how the questions that we get often are how to get your accounting in order, how to get my books up to date. Am I supposed to be paying taxes? Right? These are the things that we need to iron out for ourselves. So, and we can leverage local and foreign resources to solve those problems that we have and work alongside other entities to get a better understanding of the resources available to us and foster collaboration amongst us all. And in our time, we have met many resources and everyone wants to help entrepreneurs, believe it or not. I didn't believe it at first, but indeed they do. So the little things that we did, mapping the social entrepreneurial landscape, Academy of Women Entrepreneurs, had 6 cohorts as like females, financial literacy workshop with Dr. Joanne Flett, one of the founders of the Ehub. We had Republic Bank come and talk to us about how to set up a bank account and how to get a loan, the issues that they see from their end, why we don't get a loan. It's pretty good. Export readiness. Everyone should be exporting. The grants available to export, what to take advantage of. Last year in December, we had the Entrepreneurship Forum 2024 and the Central Bank Auditorium. It was really well received. We had the Small Business Workshop Series, right? And this is where we meet every month to talk about what, just very much like what we do now, where we talk about the issues and we take advantage of resources given to us by YLI, right? As a Young Leaders for America's Initiative program that they have available online for free for now. And we take advantage of it to discuss and learn together. Cool. So I will ask, we need your voice to come along with us because nobody cares about Toanya Marhem or Deborah Roberts independently. But together we can say, hey, there are 2,000 of us and all of us have this particular issue. Please assist. And we'll listen to the group. So that's the intention behind us today and why we need your support. All right, so today we are going to talk about the fundamentals of business expansion, right? And we have a superstar, local superstar here with us, Christophe, right? He is the Vice Chair of Trade and Investment at the Trade and Investment Committee at AmCham, as the American Chamber of Trade and Tobago, and Director of Business Operations for Cole & Associates Engineered Safety Systems Limited. I would have known about Cole & Associates back in engineering days. They worked on industrial plants, helping our safety systems be in a gear. Cole, do you want to say hello?
Hi, good morning. Yes, and thanks again for having me. I'm looking forward to this session.
No problem, no problem. All right, so we're going to go into our course. Share it again. All right, so as I said before, you'll get this link and you go here and there are all the lovely courses that you could take, right? Or if you go to our website and go to workshop series, and you have all the recordings over time, so you get the benefit of the local expertise. It's cute. Without further ado, let's dig right in. So the fundamentals of business expansion. Very first lesson, which you always get questions about. I have questions about it. raising capital. So we'll listen, and then we'll ask Christophe after, did it talk any sense? Did he experience it like this? And what else can he add or take away?
How to raise capital. There are 3 learning objectives for this module: identifying the types of capital, understanding the process of engaging investors, and estimating the timeline for raising capital. Perhaps the most common question that new entrepreneurs ask is, how do I raise capital? Unfortunately, the unsatisfying answer is that when your business is ready, it's actually not that hard to raise capital. And if your business isn't ready, then it can be almost impossible. With that said, there are definitely more effective ways to go about the process of raising capital. One of the most important things to understand before you start to raise capital is the different types of capital that may be available to your business, depending on the type of business, the maturity of the business, and the market in which you operate. If you have an idea, but have yet to build a product or have any real usage that can validate your business model, then you're probably looking for friends and family to invest in you. Friends and family doesn't literally mean only your friends or family members. It means that you're approaching people with whom you have a trusted relationship and asking them to believe in you with minimal evidence that you'll be successful other than their prior experiences with you. One of the unfair elements of life is that some entrepreneurs have access to friends and family with a lot more capital than other entrepreneurs. Regardless, for almost every entrepreneur, the money you raise from your friends and family is precious, so make sure you spend it carefully. If you have a product, or at least a working prototype, and strong evidence that customers will use it and ideally pay for it, then you can approach seed investors. The term seed refers to startups in the earlier stages, more than just an idea, but not yet a fully developed business. Seed investors may be professionals who spend all their time investing and helping their investments to succeed, or they may be angels who often have another full-time occupation but invest in startups as a pastime and a passion. Smart seed investors look at a lot of potential startups for every one investment they actually make. They'll know to ask tough questions and dig into your data, so you need to be prepared. Many entrepreneurs dream about raising venture capital. Venture capital generally comes from firms, groups of professionals that specialize in finding promising companies ready to grow rapidly, making investment in those companies, often over a number of years, then helping those companies grow as fast as possible. Venture capitalists will often need to see a mature product and compelling evidence that you have a great way to make a lot of money and grow very quickly. As a simple rule of thumb, friends and family invest in you and your idea. Seed investors invest in your process of experimentation to find a great business model. Venture capitalists invest in great business models to help them grow. Of course, there are other types of capital that might work for you depending on your product. Some products work great for crowdfunding through sites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Borrowing money from banks might work for other types of solutions. Once you're confident that your business is ready to raise a particular type of capital, then you really need to work to develop your pitch, or the story you tell investors about your business model and how you will grow a big business quickly. While you're developing your pitch, which should take weeks or even months of diligent practice to get right, you should also be connecting with potential investors. A great way to engage an investor is to let them know you'll be raising soon, but would like to start by getting their advice. This gives them an opportunity to get to know you over time and signal their interest before a formal pitch. Once your business is ready, your pitch is strong, and you're confident that you have a good pool of interested investors, then you actually go forward with a formal capital raise. The raise itself may only take a few weeks to a few months, but the overall process of raising capital should take as long as 6 months to do right.
All right. All right, guys, that was interesting, good, I hope. But let's hear from the expert himself. Christophe, did he talk sense or not so much sense? And is it like that in Trinidad, in your experience?
For the most part, yes, it was relevant, and the options that he listed there, are basically relevant to our situation here in Trinidad. I think there are two things on two ends of the spectrum that might not have been mentioned. One would be the fact that there is the option to just self-fund, which is an option, and depending on the type of business venture that you're going into, that if it is that it's not an extremely large startup that might not need an extremely large amount of capital. I know a lot of entrepreneurs simply just save their money over a period of time. You say, okay, well, over the next 5 years, I'm going to put aside money for my business. And you hear a lot of people saying that, yeah, I have a business in mind and I'm just saving money for that. And when they get enough money, you start. So in that way, you don't have to worry about investors pounding on your back or who you have to report to. You're not in any set of debt. So the risk element of it becomes a little bit less. So self-funding is something that is a big reality for us here. And that's probably not exclusive to Trinidad. That could be as a global thing. So self-funding. But of course, when he was talking about the 6-month period, which if you're self-funding, it may not be possible. It would probably take a couple of years to gather the capital that you would need to. The other end of the spectrum there that I think he touched on it, but not mentioned it too much, that we have available to us in Trinidad is we have a lot of government programs available. I think you guys at Ehub would have done a couple of sessions about those things. So, but yeah, within the different ministries and different sectors, there's a lot of incentive programs where funds can be accessed. Even us in AmCham TNI committee, we have a session coming up later this year where we plan to, sensitize people get this, because there's so much funding available, and not just government. There's a lot of international organizations that would help entrepreneurs locally. The other element of it, so there is he spoke about friends and family, and that's why I could probably go into our personal our company's experience. So our company was started based on friends and family buy-in. So of course it was not a loan or any sort of debt venture. It was an equity venture in terms of the people who would have bought into the company in initial stages are, for the most part, still shareholders in the company today, all friends and family. And yeah, so that's a reality of a couple of businesses. But you also have venture capitalists in Trinidad. It's not something that is as well known. I'm not sure how many people in the session are aware of venture capitalists. I get the sense that a lot of venture capital, not necessarily firms, but there are groups of venture capitalists who operate and who fund millions, if probably not billions of dollars within Trinidad and Tobago worth of venture capital. People who, I know one particular group of retired business executives, they have a lot of money at their disposal and they want to, one, invest their money, and two, help the future generation build up themselves. So, but they don't advertise it because then they'll just have a swarm of people coming towards them. So they do it more on a referral basis. So there are people like that, groups like that, and not established firms per se, as the video alluded to. But one of the other things that needs to be considered, which is probably might be my last point on it, would be the fact that the most common form of debt capital raising would be going towards the more institutional financiers, which would be your commercial banks and so on. And between them, the commercial banks especially, and the government, the challenge with that is that their risk appetite is a little bit more conservative. I'm saying that it's a lot more conservative. So for instance, if it is that you go to one of these institutions or a bank and you say you want to open a supermarket and you have a good business plan, and somebody else goes and says they want to launch this app, which is, a lot less heard of and a lot more, that's what I'm looking for, risky. It has the potential to pay off a lot more. The bank might faster go to the supermarket because, you know what a supermarket is, what the trajectory of that is, the returns are going to be. So they tend to be a little bit more hesitant to invest in the more risky ventures, which I think is probably one of our downfalls in our economy as a whole in Trinidad and Tobago. Similar with the government. The government, understandably, because the government is not in the business of taking risk and in returns. They just want to support the economy. So the programs that they have would be specifically geared to certain types of industry, and which doesn't leave a lot of room for innovation then. So those are, and then of course, when you're going with your business plan, the risk business plan needs to be very, very comprehensive. I'm sure that in the session Republic Bank that you had before, they probably would have mentioned some of those things. I know I was talking to a former executive in a particular commercial bank, and he was mentioning just something as simple as if a business is projecting profit within their first year of operation, he turns on the plan one time, because he says that you need to make room and make allowances to make losses for a couple of years. You know, if you might turn a profit, maybe if you're lucky, but you need to have your allowances for it, because if you make a loss and if something goes wrong, you need to be able to bounce back from it and not just have everything fall flat. So simple things like that, and in having a good business plan and having a good business plan developed. So yeah, so those are my 2 cents or 5 cents on that.
That's really, 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 really good, Christophe. I want to recap and reiterate a couple things. So in terms of the sources of funds, you said at the very beginning, there's bootstrapping, self-funding, all right? And you also have government programs and incentives. And then you have friends and family. So, they spoke about seed investors and venture capitalists. We have the opinion that venture capitalists do exist in Trinidad, but you're saying they do exist, but they don't really advertise to us. Otherwise, all of us will come knocking on their doors, right? But they like to go refer something that they could, as the guy said, they need compelling evidence that you have a great product. Also, you mentioned that there are the commercial banks, indeed. In the sessions that we had with them, yes, they see through the people entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs bring to them, because they are accustomed to seeing excellent people. So when we bring people to them, they see all the issues, and it's difficult for them to put trust in the people. All banks, except at this point in time, as we know, Republic Bank, who have initiated to give away money to small entrepreneurs. And with that being said, I want to put a question, which is, let's say we are the micro entrepreneur, we typically use up all the money we can get our hands on. So, which is, you use up our family money, right, or your self money, right? You beg your family, but family have money to give us, right? Or they do, right? And you already got it. What is or exhausted that source? So the very next step, as I'm looking at all of them right here, we have either the bank that, like right now, we have a bank willing to give like up to 100, 200,000, right? And you have persons who could invest in you, right? What would you say is the practical next step? Like, which one would you go to?
I guess it depends on what the person sees as the vision for the undertaking or for the business. Because if you go with persons who are investing in you, just like Shark Tank, and then there was this other show, a local show, Planting Seeds, where the whole thing was that if you accept money from these investors, you're giving up control. And if that's not the direction you want to go to, then you might want to more seriously consider the debt option of, going and get money from the commercial banks or some institution like that. So it really depends on what what your vision is and what you're willing to do. Because some people may not want to have too many hands in the pot then. So, and they might want to maintain control of the operation because they know what their vision is. And if other people come and dilute that vision, then it may not achieve the end result that they want. So yeah, so that's one of the main considerations as well. And also, the thing about debt is that you have to pay back the debt. You have to make a certain amount of money by a certain amount of time. With equity, you're in it together. So if you tell your investors, well, the investors understand when they invest in, well, I might not get back this money. I might not see any returns from it, and they understand that. As whereas the bank, you have to pay them back.
Good stuff. Anyone have any questions? You just drop it in the chat and we'll ask Christophe. Ariane has a good question. When approaching investors, what kind of returns are acceptable?
Right.
Is it percentage-based or time-based?
That's a very, very good question. And I would go back to our own experience within my company. When we had first approached investors, I mean, our operation took off pretty quickly. And when we go into the other videos, I'll get into why. But there was another, again, decision that had to be made among the investors who would, of course, become your shareholders or, well, depending on what sort of operation you set up. If you set up a limited company, they'll be shareholders. If not, they'll be partners or so on. The question that we had to ask ourselves, I think about 5 years into the operation, because the first 5 years, people were getting pretty large returns. We were giving up to about 25% dividends, which is pretty big. Dividends, you might get 5-10%, we were giving up to 25%. But then the question became, if we want to grow, we can't keep doing this. We have to reinvest some of this back into the business. So it was a discussion that needed to be had. So again, it's about how much of the profits that you anticipate that you're going to earn, you want to give to your shareholders, and how much you want to reinvest into your company to allow and cater for growth. That'll be my response to that.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Really good stuff. Did you count yourself as a shareholder with the profits?
As in me personally, if I count myself as a shareholder, I don't understand.
I guess, let's see. When you're sharing profits, right? Did you, I guess, are you a shareholder or is the family the shareholder in Christophe in a Cool Associates?
So I am a shareholder now. Again, so just to go into when sharing, okay. When sharing profits, did you make any profits in the first few years? Or if I made profits? So the shareholders at the time made profits in the first 2 years. I was 8 years old at the time, so I was not privy to the windfalls of the business directly. I mean, my parents did, so I suppose I benefited in the form of food on my table and a roof over my head. But personally, yeah, so they did. They would have gotten dividends within the first couple of years, yes.
How do you create self-funding?
Right, so self-funding. So I mean, the simplest way is just to save. If you're in a partnership, you just decide among your partners whether you're going to do an equal split. If it's 2 people, 50-50, or if it's 3 people, split it up evenly. Or if one person is going to invest a little bit more, which means automatically that they would have more of a stake in the business or more of a say in the business as opposed to the others who might invest a little less. And of course, it depends on people's outlook. I've known quite a bit of people who would have gone into partnerships with friends or family or whatever. And some people just invest because, again, friends and family, just because they want to support the person. They would not set up a limited liability company. They were trying to avoid a lot of the bureaucracy that comes with that. So they just went into partnership, but probably one person just kept the control because it was their operation. And then of course in other instances where people are self-funding, saving up and saying, okay, by this date we will have X amount of funds to start up the operation, but one person might be making more money than the other, so it will be understood that they would invest more, but again, stake and control.
All right, cool, that's great. Let's go with it.
Can you, Mark? Can you market your business as a subcategories and they can invest in this part, but not that part of the same business? So if I'm understanding that, so if you want to invest in have investors invest in different areas of your business, it'll be difficult from a legal standpoint, because if you're investing in a business, and it depends on what kind of investor you're getting. If it's somebody, if you're doing like an institutional investor who's somebody who's loaning you the money, like a bank or uh, uh, a venture capitalist or something like that, well, venture capitalists invest, then from a legal standpoint, they'll be investing in the business, as in the legal entity that's the business. So unless you set up a separate legal entity, then it may not be feasible to do that.
Indeed. And then, they'll be looking at your books, and your books will be for the entire.
Right, yeah.
All right, cool, guys. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's move on to the next one.
Growing your business. There's 3 learning objectives for this talk. What is product market fit? How do you scale your business? And what is customer acquisition? Every startup founder dreams of world domination, the kind of explosive growth that takes you from a dream to millions or billions of people using your product around the world. Rapid growth is rarely about just striking gold, though. It's much more about developing the right processes. Before you can grow, you have to have a product that users love and with the ability to generate enough revenue to make a profit, ideally a large profit. Finding a business model that works is often referred to as finding product market fit. There are lots of great products and lots of juicy markets, but to grow fast, you have to have found the right product for the right market. The lean startup methodology is one popular way that successful startup founders go through the process of finding product market fit. A lean startup approach to building your business plan pairs an iterative, experimental approach to developing an in-depth understanding of your customers and their needs and wants with a fast, flexible approach to building your product. The idea is that you build as little of your product as possible, test it with real customers, then make quick tweaks and changes to the product and repeat. One important rule of thumb is that it's much easier to iterate and refine towards product market fit at small scale than once you've started to grow. There are simply fewer variables and less complexity. It's important to make sure you're growing the right business model before you spend a significant amount of capital on scaling it. Strong evidence of product market fit might be as simple as several hundred active users or a few key enterprise clients, but it might also require more extensive testing and growth to really validate your model. Once you have product market fit, the next challenge becomes growing your business. There are many aspects to growing a business, from a few co-founders with a small group of early adopter customers into a huge global operation. The primary challenge, however, is finding a repeatable customer acquisition model. In other words, you need to get really efficient at finding profitable customers for your product. In the early days of your startup, your early adopter customers may very well come from the hustle, networks, and charisma of the founding team. But there's an inevitable limit as to how big you can grow with all your customers coming from people the founders know. At some point, you need to start experimenting and refining the way in which you'll find, keep, and grow customers. Depending on how much revenue you'll get from each individual sale or customer relationship and the nature of your relationships with your customers, the ways you find, keep, and grow customers will look different. If your customers are big corporations, with each sale representing hundreds of thousands of dollars per year in revenue, and with each customer requiring a lot of attention, then you'll probably hire salespeople who will spend real, meaningful time in person with customers working to develop the relationship and close sales. If you're selling a mobile app to consumers with each user representing a few dollars per year in revenue, then you'll almost certainly need to find your customers online with zero direct interaction between your team and your customers. If you're somewhere in between, perhaps you're selling an online tool to small businesses who each pay you $1,000 per year, then you may look towards a model where you're finding potential customers online, but then having less expensive salespeople call them on the phone to turn those potential customers into actual customers. Regardless, you'll need to work hard to refine your model to make it as efficient as possible, so the capital you raise for growth can take you as far as possible.
All right, Christophe. he spoke about product market fit and customer acquisition model. Did he talk sense or not so much?
Yes, a lot of sense there actually. For anybody who would have studied, done anything in business management or management studies or so, there's a simple model called the Boston's Matrix, which fits directly into what he's talking about there. Boston's Matrix compares your market growth to the market share that you have. And then it divides it into 4 quadrants. And I think that's something that's very important for businesses to do and not just do once, but do. See, oh yes, see over there. So you have your stars, your dogs, your question marks, and your cash cows. So it's something that you constantly need to do because your situation may continue to change or opportunities may pop up. So even for our purposes, and well, in our company, in our experience, I could go back to that again. We are a company that started off at as providers of engineering. So we are still primarily an engineering solutions company. So we provide safety systems, fire detection systems primarily, and then we branched into different things, and different things would have been profitable at certain points. So I'll give 2 examples of things that we would have branched into over the years, the one that did and one that didn't work. So the first one would have been because we would have engaged suppliers in who have supplied secure safety equipment, so like your smoke detectors, your fire alarm systems then. And a couple of these suppliers would have also provided, as part of their product offering, would have provided security systems and security components. And there was a certain point where that had taken a real boom. So just before that, we had gotten into the security systems business, doing, small intrusion alarms. We were doing cameras, we were doing things like that. In fact, one of the bigger projects that we would have gotten was we provided some camera or CCTV systems for when they had the Cricket World Cup. I think that was all the way back in 2007, when the Caribbean hosted the Cricket World Cup. And we had gone, it was a huge project. We had gone to different islands and done CCTV systems. But what we realized after that is that CCTV was not very profitable after that. Reason being because so many people were entering the market became saturated because security was more of a concern. Everybody was getting into it. There were very little to no barriers to entry. So us as a business with overheads and rent to pay and staff to pay and this and that and all these statutory obligations to meet, we couldn't in price compete with somebody who is operating from their house. You have the little boy from down the street helping you install your cameras, and then at the end of the day, your wife doing the books on your dining room table, and so you have no overheads, and you charging a much lower price than a business. So eventually, we realized that it was not a profitable venture. So we slowly came out of that business. So it's not something that we offer anymore. On the other hand, because we were involved a lot in safety over the years, we saw other opportunities for growth and other safety offerings. So one of the things that we ended up getting into, just by chance, because we attend overseas conferences where there are new products being launched and offered to the market, to the global market. One of the things would be a conference called the NFPA conference, National Fire Protection Association conference. And we came across a brand of PPE, of personal protective equipment, that was not being offered in Trinidad as yet. That was significantly better quality, much lighter, much more durable than what was being offered in Trinidad. So we brought it up. We brought it across. We started the venture. It took a lot because it was going to be custom-made garments that we were making for primarily for the industrial sector. And that operation actually took off, and it's still going today. So that's actually another line of business that we have separate to our core line of business. The customer base is very similar. Well, it's actually the same customer base, and it works out because if the customers know you for this, and you tell them, oh yeah, I offer this as well, exactly as the video was talking about, it's much easier to do what we call market development as opposed to product development, which we did both, but it was much easier just to tell your existing clients, your industrial clients, hey, if you want, we can provide this or we can provide this. So that's just two different experiences of growing your business and growing your products.
Understand. So let's to say the camera business, right, which was once upon a time a star or cash cow, came to be a dog eventually because the Boston Matrix, right? And your PPE or your clothing business in safety clothing, that continued to be like one of your stars or your cash cows.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me see if there are any questions in the chat. Question for you guys, and you can say yes or no. Have you given much thought to your customer, well, first say product market fit? And Christophe, how you know when you have a product market fit?
In general, I guess it depends on the take of the product to the market. Sometimes you don't, sometimes the market doesn't take to the product. One of the things that we go back to, when people ask a question along those lines, I go back to years ago when KFC had launched the curry fried chicken. If everybody remembers that came off of the market as quickly as it came on because it just was not a product market fit. It was not, it was notorious for being not good. So it's a matter of doing your market research, doing your trial runs and things like that, your focus groups if you need to, or you're doing your sampling and taking feedback as it comes. Because I know some business people, they come and they tell themselves, yeah, man, people will buy that and they just launch and they invest their money. And you don't want to get to the point where you spent all your money and then realize, oh, yeah, that's not going to work. So you really need to do the research beforehand before you get out in the market, because not only would it fail, but it also affects your reputation.
What can you share about the process of launching new developed products into the market? Patent process, alternatives,
How department companies put out. Right, so that's actually a very good question. So depending on the type of product, there could be a lot of and depending on who your client would be, there could be a lot of bureaucracy to go through. So sometimes in terms of so when we went into our garment business, we had to do a lot of things. So because the intention was not just to manufacture and sell in Trinidad, we wanted to go, at least go regional with it, which we did to some extent. But so when you're selling to a local market and you're selling a certain type of product, especially to industrial clients or larger clients, they would need certain things. So you want to have your ISO certifications. Sometimes Bureau of Standards would get involved, things like that. And then of course they want to know about your manufacturing process. So there are a lot of boxes to check. And then of course if you're exporting, there's a whole other thing, a whole other bunch of boxes that would need to be ticked from, because you're looking at Incoterms and all these kind of things that you want to cater to when doing the business model. And then of course on an international scale, there are a lot more standards to meet internationally to be able to compete in overseas and have the clients overseas know what you're selling and know exactly what it is they're getting if you sell them your product.
How did you determine that product market fit to go out international?
The same thing. That side of the business really mostly piggybacked on our core business. So it really was a matter of taking the existing clients that we had overseas as well and offering the same products to them. And then some of them would have mentioned it. And then from there, because we didn't have a physical presence in some of the other islands, we allowed the kind of word of mouth to spread in the other territories where we weren't physically present.
All right, so let's tackle the next video. Nice. Multiple streams of income.
My name is Saran Kaba-Jones, and this is Growing Your Startup. In this lesson, you will learn the key to growing your startup and getting to the next level. You'll also learn how to raise additional funds and how to move beyond your comfort zone. Many small businesses struggle to achieve growth, and more than a third of all startups fail within 2 years. For those of you who have built a successful small business, you want to know how to grow your business and when to grow beyond its current level. When is the right time to expand your business? Growth is key to the success of any startup, but the best type of growth is one that is carefully thought through and planned out. Sometimes growing too fast without proper planning can harm and even destroy a business. So before you undertake any major growth initiatives, like launching a new product or opening a new store, you must first understand the future of your industry. Ask yourself whether demand for your products or services are growing, what your competitors are doing, and whether you can continue to meet your customers' demand at the same level of service. Quality of service often drops when businesses start expanding too fast, which can impact your brand's reputation. Sometimes you need to spend money to make money. Before expanding your business, you should evaluate whether you can raise enough capital to make the jump. Finally, never forget what got you started in your business, your entrepreneurial dream. This is a new challenge for you, so it's important to believe in yourself. Trust your good judgment for when to seize opportunities and grow. Now, how do you grow your business? Here are 4 quick ideas to help you with your business expansion. 1, open another location. This will allow you to reach a new demographic and give you exposure in an area that did not know you existed, but needs your products and services. 2, diversify. Diversifying your product or service line is an excellent growth strategy because it allows you to have multiple streams of income. When I started my organization, we were focused exclusively on delivering water services. We have since diversified to include sanitation and hygiene promotion services, which provides different opportunities for us to raise funds. 3, win a government contract. One of the best ways to grow your business is to have the government as a customer. In most countries, the government is the largest buyer of goods and services, and some even require their various agencies to allocate a certain percentage of their purchase to local businesses. 4, expand to the internet. Having a web presence is an integral part in today's business environment. It also serves as an online storefront and acts as the conveyor of your business's brand and message to the world. Expanding your business to the internet allows you to indirectly go global with your products and services. How to raise funds to grow your business. Getting your business to the next stage is never easy, and you will more than likely need some capital. It is important not to limit yourself and get creative. In addition to angel investors and traditional bank loans, there are many potential sources of funds, such as crowdfunding, business incubators, competitions, and small business grants. Moving beyond your comfort zone. No matter which sector you're in, networking is the fastest track to success and puts you in a position to meet the right people who can help you fundraise and deliver results. It is important to expand your horizon and move beyond your immediate network of friends and acquaintances and build a wider global network of supporters and funders. Taking a small business to the next level requires hard work, perseverance, risk, and a good product or service. They are all key to growing your startup.
All right. How was that? Was that sense or nonsense?
Yes, a lot of sense. Yeah, you hear me?
Yes, yes, loud and clear.
Yes, right. So, yeah, a lot of sense, especially the 4 points. I missed the last point though about the growing the business at another
Expanding
location.
to the internet, okay, was the last one.
Huh?
Expanding to the internet.
Right. Yes. Right. Yes. Right. Yeah, I got distracted for a split second. So again, so to go back to our experience, we spoke about the second one just now in the previous video. But the first one, adding another location, that has worked well for us. So for instance, we opened a second office in Tobago, where I am currently, and we've been doing pretty well for ourselves. And we found that a lot of businesses in our field operate in Tobago, but they would operate or they would coordinate things from Trinidad. We took the chance and opened an office in Tobago because we had gotten a large project across here. And we would have opened it because we just took the chance and said, okay, well, let's do it one time. And what we realized is that opening the office, yes, there's a lot of business that comes from, that could be coordinated from Trinidad, but there are little niches of business that people come by or that you get because you're physically there. People in Tobago would tend more to go to somebody who's around, who they know, okay, well, I don't need for this person to need to wait for this person to come across or this company to come across to handle my stories, if you're physically there. So it's something that was a good decision on our part. Diversify, well, we spoke about that already, diversifying our products and diversifying your portfolio and stuff. The third point is something that I want to touch on, which is very, very different from the context that she's talking about to the context that we experience here in Trinidad and Tobago, win a government contract. There was a particular year, and again, going back to our company's experience, there was a particular year, probably one of the largest contracts that we had gotten in our company's lifetime. We were still relatively new. I think we were just crossing 10 years or 12 years or something like that. So we weren't extremely large. I mean, not that we're extremely large now, but we weren't very big. But we had gotten a pretty big contract from a particular government agency. They made a portion of the down payment, I believe. I think that they made a small down payment, but a lot of the project needed to be funded by ourselves. So of course we got loans and stuff from the bank for this particular contract, and a lot of it involved getting a lot of foreign equipment. This was before a lot of the forex were in place, so we were able to get some forex with relative ease. Started the project, made a good timing because a lot of things were put in place for the contract. And then about a year in, less than a year in, because the project was supposed to take about 2 years, about a year in, elections. Government changed, and all of a sudden, funding stopped because we were getting progress payments from the particular government agency as we went along, and all of a sudden, funding stopped. And we were just left in a kind of a quandary because we had invested all of this money, a significant sum of money. And eventually they just said that they canceled the whole project. They found the legal loopholes to do so. And then it was a task, to get paid for what, because we were entitled to get paid for what we had done up to that point. It took us, I kid you not, about 10 years to get that whole amount of money because it was a bunch of going back and forth, and then we had to go the legal route and whatever. 10 years, we had loans to pay, we had suppliers to pay, we had things that were outstanding, we had invested in equipment for this project. And we were just in a we were put in a very, very, very sticky financial position because of this one government contract. And it's not something that's uncommon to happen in Trinidad and Tobago. So we need to understand our political climate, and it's very notorious that certain government entities, well, doing work with the government on the whole, sad to say, you don't get paid on time. Some utility companies, not calling any particular, but some utility companies, unless you know somebody, you'll be lucky if your grandchildren see the money that you work for. And it's just the reality. So you need to be very, very cautious about going that third route of winning a government contract and putting all your eggs in that basket. And you need to be very cautious in your mind about thinking about, can I fund this or can I take this blow if this turns south? Because remember, the government is not one person. The government can change at a moment's notice, and the person who engaged you and the outgoing entity may not care because they sail into the sunset. The new person doesn't want to do business with you. It's you to catch. Yeah, and the last one, expand online. That's pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I mean, we're in 2025 now. I don't think any business can exist without having, online presence and engaging some sort of their business online. And of course, doing your business online and having some of your operations online, using cloud services, using online applications to assist in running a business more efficiently. She also spoke about raising capital there, and it's always a good thing. The two things I want to touch on there. One is that about the government grants. Now, as I said earlier, there's a lot of government grants. One thing that we might not even consider as a grant would be things, for instance, like the government gives tax amnesties. That's a grant in a certain form, because if you had money set aside to pay your taxes or to pay your arrears on taxes, the amnesty doesn't absolve you from the tax, it absolves you from the interest on the tax. So, but if you had put aside money for that and you now don't have to pay this portion of it, which sometimes could be more than the principal, then you have that money to invest otherwise. So it's a grant in some sense, which we experience that. Another thing important to touch on, which is very, very good, is networking. As business people, you always tend to go to a lot of these business events and just being involved. So for instance, like ourselves, being involved in the American Chamber or the TT Chamber or TTMA or any of the regional chambers, energy chambers, so on, and going to their events and going to business networking events is always good, just to get your name out there. And I would stress, you don't have to go and sell your product at these events. In fact, it's quite annoying, I find, when you have people coming up to you, who do you have providing your insurance for you? I didn't come here to talk about that. What I do and what has worked for us, you go and you just meet people. Hey, how are you doing? And start a conversation. Eventually, you'll be asked, so you'll get the opportunity to say, somebody will ask, so what do you do? Tell them what you do. You don't ask them about who provided that service to them. You just tell them what you do. And when the time comes, which it more than will, especially in our line of business, eventually people will come, or somebody might need some sort of service in safety. And then you realize, oh yeah, I remember that I met this guy. I still have his card. Okay, let me give him a call. And we always get business like that. I've never gone to any of those functions or networking events or cocktail and tried to sell a product to somebody, but we always get business from those kind of things. So that's just a little word of advice. So
great stuff. As micro entrepreneurs, from your very first point, many of us have to open a physical presence, right? Many of us work from home, so that's good. And then you said getting into Tobago was excellent for you. And there's a question here about how do you even enter the Tobago market? Do you have to negotiate, interact with the THA?
All right, so I'll combine that with the comment above from Akim, saying doing with the government is really great for your business growth. Were you being sarcastic there, or you I tried. It is to some extent if you're looking at the long-term picture. But sometimes it can be very frustrating as well. As I said, if cash flow is something that's very critical to your business, then doing business with the government can be a very, very tricky thing. We did work for the. Let me go back to answer the other question first. How do you enter the Tobago market? So in Tobago, the largest spender on the island is the THA. And then if you compare that with other government entities, then you're covering about 80% of the economic activity on the island. So you definitely do. Beforehand, and this is just to get into the technicalities of it, when we first came in, we had to register with the THA because they had a separate procurement section. Now, from what I understand, well, not from what I understand, what the case is, because of the procurement legislation that was passed, their procurement office is no longer operating separately to the OPR, Office of Procurement Regulation. So they actually sent out notices and advised us that, they even told us to come back and pick up our packages that we would have dropped off years and years before, because everything is now being handled by the OPR. But the registering with the THA did bring us a lot of government business. But at the same time, when we did work for all of these divisions and, just even the very, very small things, and we still waiting for money for things that we did in December, because we know, well, yeah, I don't stress about it. One thing though that it never falls through the cracks, and it very rarely falls through the cracks, I should say. You know you get any money, but you get it on time, there's another story. So you don't bank on it to pay your bills for this month, because you might not get it this month. You'll get it eventually. So that's a very real thing that you need to be aware of.
What do you say is the average? How long, just for the information and education of us? How long you take typically to get paid from the government?
Impossible to say. Impossible to say, because just yesterday I've almost felt on Tuesday we delivered some things to a client, a government client. And yesterday I checked our bank account and the money was there. I was like, what? I could not believe my eyes, because that means that they would have sent that payment as soon as they got it, which is extremely rare for a government agency. And so sometimes it can happen as quickly as that. It was a very, very small, like a very small amount, but even so. And then sometimes you wait in months. Another government client, we always need to keep doing business with them, because sometimes we take equipment from them to go and service or repair or whatever. And what we literally have to do, this session is being recorded, but sometimes we literally have to hold the equipment ransom and be like, hey, you all have another bill, and we're not returning this until you all pay that bill that you all had outstanding for 3 months ago. And return that, we have to make sure. And if we don't have something to hold ransom, then anybody's guess. That's when you get until the next thing comes up. So it's really, really hit or miss. You can't say. The terms that we give them is 30 days, but yeah. But again, it's money, it's guaranteed money. So it's something that's very real to consider. So there are a bunch of other questions that came.
All right, that's some advice. I want to know if this is good advice. To be careful with doing business, government, and election year.
Yes, that's a very real thing as well. Yes, doing it in an election year is a risk we need. Yes. Yes, and we experienced that in Tobago some time ago. And Trinidad, again, like as the story I mentioned earlier, so doing business in an election year. But if it is that the nature of your business is such that you rely on the government business, that you rely on government contracts, and you can't stop doing it. And then, because the risk is that if it is that your bottom line at the end of the year depends on this revenue from your government contracts, if you stop, or if you tell them that, hey, we're not going to do this anymore, or we're not going to do this year, they will find somebody else as quickly as you, again, depending on how saturated your market is, they could find somebody else to do it. And then when you're ready to go start out doing business with them after the election, then yeah. But of course, the other side of that coin is that after the election, if the government changes, then you might have a fresh slate, so you might quite easily get back in there, provided that you have no political alliances or allegiances, which is something also very real to consider. Some of the points, it's from the video, right?
Right. I think I had a question from Facebook, but just from the video before, which was, what are the 3 things you would say makes a great product for any type of investor? So what are investors looking for to invest in a product?
Well, investors, I guess I'll be going back to the first section. So investors would be looking for returns, but of course, timeliness of the returns, the quantity of returns, and then sustainability, I would say, would be the three things that they may be looking for. So there are people who might just be looking to make that money and then that's it. But typically, people who invest as an ongoing thing, they want to know that they're getting a certain quantity back over a period of time. You don't have to wait extensive period of time for your business to start turning profits to be able to provide the returns. And then, of course, they want to know that your business is not going to fall apart after 2-3 years.
Good stuff. Right. Let's go to our quiz. All right, guys, so I'll read out the questions and then you could put your answer in the chat. Yes, you mentioned all this. All right, question 1. There are different types of capital available, depending on your business model. True or false? Granny says true. Smile Express says true. Salim says true. Joandra true. Kenya true. Cindy true. Denise true. Francisca true. Julie true. Carolyn true. Sherry true. All right. Let's go with true. Next question. Which of these is not a source of capital? Your family, a seed investor, a pond fund, or a venture capitalist? A, B, C, or D? Pond fund. Rhonda says pond fund. Gary, pond fund. Clarissa says pond fund. Donna says pond fund. Belina says a seed investor. Cindy says pond fund. Avian, pond fund. Pond. John says pond. Ariane says pond. Okay. Colin says pond. All right. Pond fund. All right. Let's try the next one. When should you approach seed investors? When you have an idea, but not a product. When you have a product and strong evidence that customers will use it. When you have a product and can show that the company is ready to grow rapidly. None of the above. All right, I've seen some B's. B's. All right. Okay. Susanna says B. Martin says B. Kioma says B. All right, let's try B. Just remember, guys, these answers are not a reflection on me, but a reflection of you guys. Hey, don't worry, last time you all got a perfect score the first round, so I might take back that statement. So number 4, it's easier to iterate and refine toward product market fit at a large scale. True or false? False. Smile says false. Belina says false. Natalia says false. Sharina says false. Okay, Cindy says false. Salim says false. Caroline says false. All right. Kilowatti, false. Okay, we go false. Number 5. The way you find, keep, and grow customers depends on the nature of your relationship with your customers. True or false? Annalisa says true. Allison says true. Adrian says true. Natalia says true. Ariane, true. Giovanna, true. Sparkle, true. All right. True. If you primarily sell expensive solutions to large organizations, you should find them online, hire salespeople to cultivate the relationship, or find them online, then follow up with salespeople? A, B, or C? B. Casey says B. Allison says C. And more B's. Avian says B. Donna says B. Okay, C. All right, mixed bag here. B. Colin B. Rennie says B. Ria says B. Woo. All right, you're gonna be. I trust in you, Ria. I trust in you. B. Okay. So now number 7. Before deciding to grow your business, you must first understand the future of your industry, the demand for your product or service, your competition, the quality of service you can maintain, all of the above or none of the above. Marlon says all. All. Trudy says all. Sharina says all. Allison, Colin, Donna, Caroline, Kay, Yoma, Francisca, Sparkle, Adrian, Kilawati, all of the above. Okay. Which of these ideas is not the way to grow your business? Open a new location, win a government contract, diversify your product or service, be afraid to fail, or expand to the internet? A, B, C, D, or E? Jamila says be afraid to fail. Denise. Sophia says be afraid. All right. Okay, gonna be afraid. The majority says be afraid to fail. And 9, crowdfunding, business incubators, competitions, and small business grants are potential sources of funding. True or false? Yeah, lots of true. True. All right. True. Are you ready? Let's see how good we were today. One of our answers are incorrect, guys. Let's see. Before deciding to grow your business, you must first understand what you think it is. Seen some A's. I've seen some B's. I've seen market. A, we are all over. A, B. Okay, it's between A and B apparently. See more B's. There you see. Guys. Your form attach me. Let's see. Woo! Not B. It's not B. Not B at all. All right. I guess all the B's turned to A. Oh no, you have a C. A. All right, the future of the industry. All right, guys. Kalawati, you're going to hear. Yes. All right, you made it. So right, so as you know, when you finish, or some of you know, you put in all the stuff here, you can do it to test yourself and you get a nice little certificate. All right. I'll put it in on behalf of the hub. I think at max you're like about 112 of us today. So that's great. Right. So now since we have Christophe a little bit of time, like a 10-15 minutes, we can ask him all the questions that you all had burning that I know you all have. any questions, I want you can raise your hand. I'd love to hear from you guys. No questions if possible. This we get Christophe free from Charminus. Yeah, take advantage of Christophe today. All right, I gotta start asking questions. Christophe, you know anybody in Trinidad who successfully crowdfunded a business?
I actually do not, no.
All right, so guys, kill that option there. No crowdfund.
I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I just say I personally don't know anyone who has done it. So I mean that could be an option.
All right, in terms of business incubators, right? Personally, I have a friend, but her business incubator is like in Canada, right? Are you aware of, let's say, look at AmCham, because you are friends with everyone in AmCham, which is like medium to large scale businesses. What percentage of those businesses came through incubators?
I guess it depends on the age of the business. Not many of the AmCham businesses would have come through incubators as far as I am aware. Because a lot incubators is more of a recent thing, I would say, within the last 10, 15 years or so. And a lot of those businesses are older than that, like ourselves. Incubators have been producing, especially SMEs within recent times and have been successful in doing so. But not a whole lot on the bigger scene, as in moving past the stage of incubation as that I'm aware of. And a lot of the incubators that I know of in Trinidad would be more like the tech companies, especially companies working like on apps and things like that, would successfully go through business incubation. I can't give a percent, but
Okay, sounds like very little, right?
and
But your answer is correct. Your answer is correct. All right. Questions start coming in.
yeah.
Questions start coming in here. But I guess why I ask questions too about incubators is that not many of us may get through to be incubators because a number of incubators we see like for youth entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. And when I say young entrepreneurs here, I mean youth. And many of us within the group are over 35. However, I wanted it to be clear that many successful businesses do not benefit from incubators and yet have reached the size of AmCham level. Q, let's see. What's the difference between a partnership and LLC, limited liability company? The difference is it can't get NIS as a partnership, right? I learned that the hard way, and I pay my NIS, man. I pay NIS for 5 years, and then they tell me no partnerships can't get NIS. You need to go and form a limited liability company. Of course, I know the only difference. Christophe, please tell them the rest.
Well, the main difference, right, between a partnership and a sole trader, one group, and a limited liability company is exactly in the name, limited liability. So if it is that your business flops as a limited liability company, or the business incurs any significant debt or what's the word I'm looking for, liabilities coming out of something, whoever the debtors are cannot come after your personal assets as the owners of the company. They can only go after what is incorporated as the business's assets. So the business is a separate legal entity as a limited liability company, whereas as a partnership or a sole trader, it's your stuff. So they can come after your house, they come after your car, they come after your children. Well, not after your children, but they can come after whatever is your personal assets, whereas that's not the case with limited.
I get a nice question from Smile Express. How do you get an audience with those high net worth teams?
The simplest way I'd say is a network. Yeah, just network. And networking can be all sorts of forms, all sorts of fashions, not just attending networking events, but attending sessions like these. I met one person when I was actually doing my MBA at Arthur Lockjock. Arthur Lockjock is crawling with those people because a lot of them would be lecturers or probably doing PhDs and stuff there. So, a good bit of networking that I did was just in the cafeteria in Lockjock, meeting a lot of high net worth people. And so it's not just, going and saying, yeah, I'm going to put on my Sunday best and go with suit and tie and network. Networking happens all the time.
Good, good. Tax exemption for agriculture was not granted from customs. Why? Would you know the answer to that question?
Do not.
No problem. Going to Ghana, is that a good idea to help with Forex?
That is an excellent idea to help with Forex, and everybody's doing that. I know we didn't talk much about the Forex today, which is probably one of the first times that I've attended a forum like this where Forex did not eventually become the central topic of discussion. But yes, doing business in Guyana does help with that because they are getting. There was a certain point where they had a little tightness, but it's starting to flow a bit better now. So Guyana does have a lot of Forex available to do projects there. A lot of people are setting up bank accounts there and using it to fund operations back in Trinidad, but it has to be carefully done. And I don't think that they're going to put legislation or any policies in place to stop it, but it's not the easiest thing to do. And it might get a little bit more difficult as more people try.
No problem, no problem. You wholesale your safety products within the Caribbean or only retail to contracts to companies?
We don't do wholesale again. Okay, well, so the Forex thing is coming back up as something. Before we did, yes. But again, just to give a little insight into our company, so because we rely so much on Forex and because our central focus is on our systems side of the business, and we have quite a number of large projects going on, which is consuming the little bit of Forex that we are getting from different avenues, that we don't have as much to invest in the safety products like the PPE and stuff that we would have done a couple of years ago. So what we're bringing in right now, we just do retail. We would have done wholesale back in the days, but it's not a feasible option for us right now. And again, so the Forex thing is becoming a challenge. It's more than a challenge now.
Okay. What are the requirements for attaining government contracts?
Right, requirements for obtaining government contracts now, as in 2025, is very much different to, let's say, 5 years ago, because there's the OPR in place. So of course you need to be registered. You need to be registered with the Registrar General's department. So you need to be a properly registered business, whether as a sole trader or a limited liability company. You need to have all of your statutory requirements in place. So if depending on the size of your business, you need to have your VAT clearance, you need to have your NIS things in place. You need to get clearance from the Board of Inland Revenue, and then depending if you're operating any specific niche and you need specific permissions, then those would be required as well. But the basic statutory requirements are needed because and it's so ironic. It's so ironic because the reasoning behind them insisting on VAT clearance, if you ask any of them, is that they want to ensure that your business is not owing the government any money before the government can do business with you. But the ironic thing is that the government owes everybody money. So so it's kind of a very ironic situation, but those theoretically are the requirements.
Yeah. What are these challenges and opportunities that are specific for clothing businesses?
Challenging.
Oh, so Carrie, I'll explain. Carrie, she is getting into she's a designer. She can make really good clothes. And now she wants to do it on her own and expand, make lots of clothes, lots of designs. But even again, equipment might be a difficulty for her. So what are some of the challenges and opportunities for our clothing business?
So I guess it depends on what type of clothing. So one of the challenges, obviously, as I mentioned before, would be depending on where you're getting your raw materials from. So like if you're importing, again, Forex would be the biggest challenge, hands down. And then the other thing would be how competitive you want it to be. So for instance, for us, in terms of let's say depend scale and size. So if you're manufacturing a certain amount, and it's not specific to the clothing business, this is could go to most products, and so most products being manufactured in Trinidad and within small islands, where the market that you're catering for would be much smaller. So your production line, your production capacity would be much smaller, especially if you're a startup. So your economies of scale would not be as easy to achieve when you compare it to people who are operating in China, who are producing 100 times what you can produce in a day. And so their overhead costs would be divided by 100. So their end price to the retail customer, even including shipping to Trinidad, might be much less than yours. So you might be offering at a certain price, and then you might get a Chinese or Indonesian product that is significantly less. The quality might even be very similar. So that in itself could become another challenge as well. And that's something that we face. Of course, one of the things that we try to do to overcome that challenge is to tell people, well, ours is custom made. You can't get custom made things from China. That's just mass produced. So that's when we're producing our clothing, we one of the services that we offer is that we custom make things for, so one client would just pay us or give us vouchers for a certain number of people, and then they would send the people to us to get measured for tailor-made suits and for tailor-made either fire retardant shirts and pants or coveralls or whatever. And so that's a kind of unique selling point to overcome that. But it is a challenge in terms of the pricing, and of course getting your raw materials and things like that, and of course distribution. But distribution is becoming a lot easier now with e-commerce available. Yeah.
Ooh, thank you very much, Christophe. We have taken you up to 10:30, which is a great time. You have been immensely helpful. We appreciate it. Right? There are some things you touched on that strikes a chord. I know it strikes a chord. That is apart from the funding and the capital, which are excellent. Okay, Latoya has a last minute question. Latoya, let's hear you.
Hi, morning. Well, I currently rent in Port of Spain at the moment selling clothes, but it's really, really killing me at the price range of 3,500 a month. Yes, I have a small business. I sell clothes, men clothes, women clothes, kids clothes, shoes, sneaker, sandals, and the price is like killing us at the moment. Do you have any options or advice that you could give us?
So one of the things I would tell people in terms of especially retail now would be,
What's up?
All right, Cassie, as we meet.
Right. Yeah, one of the things I would always say is, especially in the day and age that we're in now, is that you always have to ask yourself, do I really need this physical space? COVID taught us a lot about what is possible in business now, and it taught us a lot about how we can move away from the traditional model of business, especially when it comes to doing retail. Online business is a very real thing. I know there's a certain segment of the buying population that would still rather come and touch and feel things before they hand over their money. But there is a growing population who would quite easily prefer to remain in their house and just click, click, click and send it to, have you send whatever product. to their doorstep or meet you somewhere and collect it. So that's one thing that I would say, you know, ask yourself whether the rent is really worth it, or could it be possible to do the business via another means, or, you know, or not a central location. As Port of Spain, because Port of Spain is significantly more expensive than other places when it comes to rent. I was saying earlier that our business, we started off in Port of Spain. We were in Port of Spain for a number of years because we wanted to be physically close to where a lot of the clients had their head offices, because a lot of them had physical meetings that we would have had to go to at spurting moments. You know, BP's head office was there, and then Atlantic had their head office there, and all these companies had their head offices, and they would call you for meetings. So we wanted to be close by, but again, as time went on, almost all the meetings became virtual. A lot of them would have downsized their office or had meetings in other locations. So we took the opportunity some years ago to move out of Port of Spain. Rent was cheaper. We got more money, more space for the same amount of money that we were paying. One of the best decisions we ever made. So that's another thing. And as for our garment business, we are not as, we don't even have a showroom. We just again we do our garment sales based on word of mouth, you know, just selling directly to the clients. We deliver it to them, they come in, they get measured. So no physical store in Trinidad. We have a small storefront in Tobago actually, but yeah, that's a different kind of operation. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, but that's why.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Questions that come out of the woodworks. If you have time, there Jamila has a question.
What are your thoughts on expansion in the service-based industry? I'm a consultant for food safety and quality management systems. I feel like in our region, people favor paying for products over services. So I was wondering about your thoughts for the service sector. I would recommend a book to you that I read very recently. My name. One of the things that we as business people need to do, and the most successful business people do, is read. And I just finished this book. It's feeling ashamed that I forgot the name. I just finished it like 2 weeks ago. Just Sign Here by Rob Quester. It's an excellent book, especially when it comes to selling services, because in a service-based industry, especially when you're talking about being a consultant, there is a very, very different dynamic to if you're selling a physical product, because as a consultant, you're really selling yourself. You're selling how people can trust you, and you're selling what you can provide for this person and how you can solve whatever problem that they have. And sometimes you need to understand the problem. And then sometimes at the same time, you might not be a good fit for a particular client. So, and you don't want to waste your time running after those people. So it's a very good, I would recommend that book. And it is, even though it's written by somebody from the US, it's very relevant to our purposes here.
Good. I do gourmet bread. This is Francesca. And the price to get a certificate of free sale is quite expensive from Kariri. Is there anywhere else that does that kind of testing?
No, Kariri, I think, is the only one, because there's Kariri and then there's Bureau of Standards, but Bureau of Standards, I don't think they don't deal with FN.
Francesca, could you tell us the price?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Oh yeah, okay. So there is the vet school at the UWI in Mount Hope. That's where most people go in now, because if Kariri charge, I think $2,500, they charge you $1,000. Right? You come through from the back. Well, actually, to get to Mount Hope Hospital is only one way now, and you can just ask the security where is the vet school, and they are doing it now. But first, you actually have to go to Food and Drug to get them, to let them tell you what test they are looking for your product. So you just don't go to the vet school and say, I want my bread tested. If you're looking for free sales certificate, you have to go first to the Food and Drugs They'll give you a slip of paper of all the parameters of the tests that they want done specifically to your product, and then you go to the vet school. Okay? Thank you.
Lovely example of use of the power of numbers. 1,000 of us, 2,000 of us, somebody went had that same issue and take the good time and solve the problem, and the solution is there. Thank you very much, Esma. The book is Just Sign Here by Rob Questa. Yes, I see it here. Just Sign Here by Rob Questa. Thank you, Joandrew. All right. And oh yes, links to the book. That's also good. All right. Woo. Daniel has a virtual reality development business who's currently looking to tap into the health and safety industry. What are the requirements and certifications or certificates needed to even begin? There are specific grants and funding establishments that assist with this directly.
Hey, Shemeon, here, Christophe.
Oh,
Yes. So yes, it's a virtual reality business. Currently, what it is we do is more in the entertainment realm, where we actually create certain marketing graphics for companies like BYD, Audi, and we use it in the virtual reality headsets. And if let's say that they're doing a launch program, then we are there to showcase the product. But we are, in a sense, getting tired of the entertainment and the marketing. We actually want to reach and expand a little bit more and tap into the health and safety industry. So you could just imagine a fire extinguisher simulator in VR. But I understand that health and safety is pretty intricate and very particular. So before we put ourselves in a position that, you know, it's going to cost us a lot more to deal with the repercussions afterwards, how do we, or what are the different requirements that we need to make sure that we are fully prepared for what's about to come?
Right. That's really interesting because I was just thinking of that, you know, the application of virtual reality in health and safety. I'll give you a very good example and application. I don't know if you would be interested in going down that road. Last week I had to do a reorientation with NGC. NGC has a number of different sites, and as part of their health and safety process, you have to do you have to do the reorientation first, as in do their orientation and then sign on for it, and you get your orientation card. But once you go to each site, they show you a video of the site where the muster points are, what the risk factors are, and so on and so forth. And then you go inside the control room, and then they have to tell you, then they simulate the different warning signals and these kind of things. And all. So the last time I was there, I was thinking, you know, this would be a very, very good thing to do as a VR experience, just put everything together. Because of course, you know, the warning signals is something that you have to, you know, it has to be an experiential thing because you have to hear it. And any site simulation is a different story altogether. It could be very much integrated. Yeah, so that's a very good application for VR in health and safety. And I just use the NGC as an example, but a lot of the other sites do the same thing. In terms of grants for funding, I can't think, I'm not going to say that there aren't any, but I'm pretty sure that there are. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, specifically for establishing that type of thing. Yeah, I can't, I know that there would be something, and probably after this session I might remember it, but.
So just a question, is it that general grants and stuff would be able still to facilitate this?
Yeah.
Great. Well, then that's good.
Yeah, but again, I suppose VR would fall into the bracket because remember at the beginning of the session I mentioned that a lot of the grants are very risk averse, so they would cater to kind of business sectors that are tried and proven, and especially government grants. They're not in the business of taking risk. So if it's not something that they know is gonna flourish and or help the economy in some way, it may not qualify for the grant then. But I think VR has been around long enough and for a long enough time that it should be fall into the category of tried and proven.
Oh yeah, we could attest to that as well.
Can I make another comment?
Sure.
Okay. I was just listening to the couple of previous callers about, but she wasn't calling. She probably put in the chat about she's renting downtown and she sells a whole lot of stuff, right? Now, basically, she's competing with a lot of people who's more or less doing the same thing. And you know what I have this saying about in business? What problem are you solving? My kind of simple advice to her is if you want to stay there, you have to pick a lane. Pick a lane. Men clothing, women clothing, shoes, lipsticks. It's how to put it, a lot of stuff going on. And you may have to, whatever you do, really be unique in what you are doing. When you get into a playing field whereby you're competing with a lot of people who are Chinese owned, in fact, you're buying the very same clothes.
That's not. It's me or you're hearing as much. She stopped.
Yeah, she just cut off.
Okay. Again, she's speaking of your unique value proposition. You have to make sure that your value significantly stands out from your neighbors. So, and a good example of this is you go into the grocery and you have to buy ketchup. And you're wondering which ketchup brand to pick up, Mattook's, Mabel's, or your new startup brand. I'm like, why? Why should I? Right? And you really, really have to create a compelling reason, right? Otherwise, they'll just go with the person that they're most familiar with, right? Another example is most of us have Android phones, few of us have iPhones, and perhaps one person has a Huawei, right, or HTC, right? And so imagine if you came out with your let's say the Shem phone. If I came out with a Shem phone, none of them gonna buy the Shem phone. I don't care about my Shem phone unless I came and say this Shem phone is specifically designed to micro entrepreneurs, such that when a micro entrepreneur uses it, all their taxes, all their bank accounts are done, everything is perfect, and you succeed. Then you'll consider it. So you have to really, really niche down into who you wanna win with. Yeah? I'm really interested from a think tank. I believe everyone here is communities and is the best you will. Yes, and in that line, from the Entrepreneurship Forum, the goal for this year is the creation of the Entrepreneurial Highway, which is a manual for how micro entrepreneurs reach from micro entrepreneurship to small and medium. So all those issues, you're going to list it out. Accounting. How do we get best out of accounting? And of course, any issues you guys raise, such like food badges, just spell it out. So the Entrepreneur Manual for 2025, this is how the best way of getting your food, your free sale badge. Cool. All right.
That's answer the question. That Daniel put there, if I've had experience in this. Yeah, we had an attempt at it. One of our lecturers in lockdown tried something similar. It really didn't take off, but that's as much experience I had in it.
Why did it not take off?
Just because time. It wasn't by anything in terms of not being feasible or viable or anything like that. It was just he tried to pull us in after everybody had finished the program, and you know, whoever had gone off to things and gotten promotions in their jobs and whatever, and then the lecturer himself had overseas commitments, and it just kind of didn't go where we wanted it to go. Yeah.
Let's see any last. All right. Susanna's a good question. So from Cole Associates and to your time in AmCham, what's the key takeaways that you would say to help persons stay resilient in our business ventures?
Right, I would say a couple of things. One is to be conscious of the market and the environment in which you operate. Right, the economy in Trinidad and Tobago today is very, very different to where it was 10 years ago. And I imagine it's very different to where it will be 10 years from now. But you need to constantly be reading the signs of the times and making the adjustments ahead of time, right? There's a saying that a bend in the road is not the end of the road, only if you fail to make the turn. So you need to constantly be able to adapt to the changing environment. You know, a lot of businesses would have, like somebody mentioned, expanded outside of Trinidad, gone to Guyana, gone to different islands, or scale back your operation. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. If the market is shrinking, people not spending as much money, you scale back, you could still make profits, you could still remain afloat. Don't ever remain stagnant. Invest in yourself and invest in your business. You know, a lot of people, the temptation is there if you get a big windfall, oh, I gotta go and buy a BMW, I'm sure everybody that are making money. That might not be the best thing. You know, invest in your business, invest in yourself, invest in people when the time is right. So they always say that as an entrepreneur, one of the best things that you can do, or one of the first investments in people that you should make, are the skills that you yourself don't have. So if you know you're a baker and you have a baking business or a bakery coming off the ground, and accounting is not your strong suit, if the business grows to a point where accounting is becoming a heavier task, hire an accountant. Don't try to burden yourself by doing it yourself, and that's not your skill, whatever. Same thing, if you're a tech entrepreneur and sales is not your thing, but you know that you need to pick up more sales, the first thing you want to do might be to hire a salesperson or somebody to help with business development. Hire these skills that you don't have. Yeah, and constantly always read the road. Yeah, so those are the things I'll say. Read the road ahead, invest in yourself, invest in business, and plan for the future. And
How do you
write
know
down.
when it's time to pivot?
Hmm?
How do you know when it's time to pivot?
Again, so your plans. So again, so the juxtaposition between your plan and not just a plan in your head, because some people will be like, yeah, I have a plan for that. A plan not written down is just a thought. So you need to have your business plan. I would always encourage people to plan annually, have a yearly plan, and then break it down into quarterly plans. And then of course you have a larger plan for 5-year growth, 10-year growth, or whatever. You compare that with the realities of the market, where you constantly reading the science of the market, you know, keep watching the news, keep watching things that are happening globally. Our world is so interconnected now that if one side of the world sneezes, the other side will catch a cold, as we know. We saw that with COVID. COVID shut down the world like that, and that started off in China. So you constantly read what is happening, and then you can adjust your plans to suit. If your plan was based on you know, so if you look at like how the government plans for government spending, if their plans were supposed to be pegged at oil at a certain price or gas at a certain price, and the price drops, then they'll have to probably cut their spending theoretically. So in the business community, we need to do the same thing. If it is that sales or the economy is going a different direction than what you projected, you might need to adjust and, as you say, pivot.
Good stuff, good stuff.
Yeah, oh, that was the question. Yeah. Yeah, what did he, someone points to pivot? Yeah, so that I guess that answered that. Calling it quits sometimes might be an option as well, you know, because sometimes if you keep beating a dead horse, you could end up in a much worse position personally than if you realize, okay, well, this is not a viable option anymore. Or pivot. One of the best things I know about pivoting, and an example I'll give just quickly. There's a company in San Fernando called Carabel. And if anybody knows that company, it still exists today, but they were very, very big many, many years ago. Their main thing was that they provided walkie-talkies. Because, you know, back in the days before cell phones, a lot of the companies would have had walkie-talkies like in their vehicles, and people had walkie-talkies that they used to move around with. Again, before cell phones. Cell phones came on stream in a big way very, very quickly and changed the whole landscape for what Carabel was selling. Carabel still exists today. Why? Because they were able to pivot. And they identified a niche market that still utilize their services. I think Carabel now sells a lot. Their main market is in the marine services industry because they still use walkie-talkies on the seas. So that's a very good example of pivoting. And so apply that to our own businesses. Speak about diversity in the electrical industry, supporting field and diversity in the electrical industry, supporting field and avenues, investments, etc. Electrical industry, that's a very wide scope.
Davian, what's your challenge in that industry?
Yeah, but just to say, so if you're talking about basic electrical work and stuff, I mean that's a pretty, it's something that's saturated, but there's always a lot of work for persons that doing electrical work in different avenues and on different scales. So there's always work for electricals, I would say. And because it's such, again, tried and proven thing, if you're trying to scale up or trying to get funding, it may not be as difficult to access because, once you have your business plans in place and you have a vision for your growth in the industry, I don't see any big hindrance to accessing funding to that through the traditional methods. But of course, there is quite a lot of money to be made even doing smaller things like commercial, domestic, industrial is a harder nut to crack into, but it's possible and it is very lucrative if you do.
All right. So Christophe, thank you very, very much. Right, you have been phenomenal. Lots of great information. I hope we can harass you some other time in the future for something else.
No
Example,
problem.
how to get persons to pay us our money that they owe us. Right. So till next time, thank you everyone who came out. All right, you all have been quite helpful in terms of contributing. Right, so thank you all, and see you all next month where we do something else and harass some other expert and make them talk to us for 2 hours. Thank you guys. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much for having me and have a good day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.